Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy. You're reading with Jimmy. We're reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Chapter 10, The Lobster Quadrille. We left off last time with Alice, the Mock Turtle, the Griffin discussing the whiting fish after singing the song of the Lobster Quadrille, and then the Mock Turtle saying, no wise fish would go anywhere without a porpoise. Top of 110. Wouldn't it really? Said Alice in a tone of great surprise. Of course not, said the Mock Turtle. Why, if a fish came to me and told me he was going on a journey, I should say, with what purpose? Don't you mean purpose? Alice said. I mean what I say, the Mock Turtle replied in an offended tone, and the Griffin added, come, let's hear some of your adventures. We're going to go back to I mean what I say in a minute, but they're talking about a porpoise and a purpose. Very close, aren't they? So I mean what I say, said the Mock Turtle. And then the Griffin says, let's change the topic. Let's just scoot down to the bottom of the page here. Then you should say what you, if you remember in the Tea Party, right? Then you should say what you mean, the March Hare went on. I do, Alice said, replied hastily. At least I mean what I say, and that's the same thing as saying what you mean. It's not the same thing, said the Hatter. You might as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see. Remember that discussion? So I mean what I say, said the Turtle. But before he can go on and they can get off on that tangent, the Griffin comes in and says, well, let's hear some of your adventures. And Alice, I could tell you my adventures beginning from this morning, she said timidly. So beginning from this morning, that means there hasn't been a whole day that passed yet. But it's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person. I want you to think about the profound statement that just came out of Alice's mouth, right? She says, I could tell you the adventures from this morning, but I can't go back to yesterday because I was a different person. Now, we can say, well, that's because she's in Wonderland and she was not in Wonderland before. As a matter of fact, as you think now about Wonderland, what is the difference between Wonderland and where she was? Remember our discussion, that email about the education that was going on with the Mock Turtle, right? The teaching, the life lessons. This is not just a child's book. I can't tell you about what's going back to yesterday. Some people can't remember what happens, a month ago, much less yesterday sometimes. Well, explain that to me, said the Mock Turtle. No, the adventures first, said the Griffin. He's impatient. Explanations take such a dreadful time. Explanations take a long time. Nobody wants to read nowadays. Just give me the facts. Here's a thought. Would you rather be operated, if you had brain tumor, would you rather be operated by the surgeon who read the book or who read the cliff notes or the footnotes or the bullet points? Explanations sometimes take a long time. It's not, I got to know this instantly. That's not always true. The Griffin here is impatient. He wants those adventures. They like stories in Wonderland, don't they? I wonder why. I think we all like stories, don't we? But in any case, she begins telling them her adventures from the time when she first saw the white rabbit. That's when all this started, if you remember. She was a little nervous about it at first because the two creatures got so close to her, one on each side, and opened their eyes and mouths very wide. And they gained courage, and she gained courage, as she went on. So they came close to her. They're opening their mouths and their eyes wide. Is it because she's a great storyteller? Do they want to eat her? But she gets more comfortable, right? She gains courage. Remember, this is a courageous young lady. Ever since she ran after that rabbit, we know she's got courage. Her listeners were perfectly quiet till she got to the part about her repeating, "You are old Father William." You remember that? To the caterpillar, and the words all coming out different. So they were quiet. They listened. Now, remember, when other people tell stories, what does Alice do? That's right. She interrupts a lot. Remember? When the mock turtle started talking, he says, "You should all keep quiet till I'm finished." But she keeps interrupting. Now, they were quiet listening to her until she got to this part. And then the mock turtle drew a long breath and said, "That's very curious." Remember, curious is one of those words. It's used 21 times. This is curious. So the next time you see something strange, you could say, "This is curious." "It's all about as curious as it can be," said the griffin. It all came out different, the mock turtle repeated thoughtfully. I should like to hear her try and repeat something now. Tell her to begin. He looked at the griffin as if he thought that it had some kind of authority over Alice. Tell her to begin. So the griffin says, "Stand up and repeat, 'Tis the voice of the sluggard." If I asked you to stand up and repeat, "'Tis the voice of the sluggard," what would you do besides throw something at me? Right? I mean, have you ever heard of that? So they're asking this poor young child, Alice, to repeat something like this. And guess what? She does know this poem. Why? Because she's an educated little girl. Remember, she takes great pride in her education. We saw that repeatedly. So, how the creatures order one about, make one repeat lessons, thought Alice. So she obviously learned this. This is one of the lessons she learned. And now she's got to get up and recite it. I might as well be at school at once. What good is this? However, she got up and began to repeat it. But her head was so full of the lobster quadrille that she hardly knew what she was saying. And the words came very queer indeed. "'Tis the voice of the lobster," I heard him declare. "You have baked me too brown. I must sugar my hair. As a duck with his eyelids, so he with his nose trims his belt and his buttons and turns out his toes. When the sands are all dry, he is gay as a lark and will talk in contemptuous tones of the shark. But when the tide rises and sharks are around, his voice has a timid and tremulous sound." We're stopping there with this analysis. But before we go on, here's the part of The Sluggard by Isaac Watts. I know you were dying to know that. "'Tis the voice," this is what the real poem is like, besides the one that Alice did. And you can go back and compare it. I'll read a little bit. "It's the voice of the sluggard. I heard him complain, 'You have waked me too soon, I must slumber again.' As the door on its hinges, so he on his bed turns his sides and his shoulders and his heavy head. A little more sleep, a little more slumber. Thus he wastes half his days and his hours without number. And when he gets up, he sits folding his hands or walks around sauntering or trifling he stands." I'm going to suggest if you don't know what a sluggard is, you should look it up. Because we don't want to be a sluggard. Think about it. And the reason I put a little box on this is because those are the first two paragraphs. Ladies and gentlemen, there's more to come in the next analysis as we finish chapter 10. This is Jimmy. We're reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. We're reading and analyzing chapter 10, The Lobster Quadrille. Thanks for listening. Come back again soon. Finish the analysis of chapter 10. And we're nearing the end of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Send me an email. Thanks for listening. See you soon. Don't be sluggards.